Welcome back to What the Flight Radio, a podcast for Inflight Crew, frequent flyers, and anyone that gives a about aviation and travel. Happy Wednesday, fam, and welcome aboard to episode 10. We have officially made it to double digits, which is, did I just say digits wrong? Whatever. We have officially made it to double digits, which is so unreal. Thank you for joining me on this journey. If you're new here, my name is Jess. I'm a flight attendant for a major U.S. airline, and on this podcast, we talk about flight attendant life, solo travel, festival culture, travel tips, and basically everything that bridges the gap between my hobbies and my career. Would love to have you join the Flight family by following along on the streaming platform of your choice. And if you're on Apple Podcasts, I would love for you to please give me a rating and leave me a review. As a reminder, the seatbelt sign is illuminated. Just kidding. No one even listens to flight attendants anyway. Shit, no one even ever listens to the captain when he says to sit down and puts the seatbelt sign on. But as a reminder, what I meant to say is this podcast is brought to you in part by my brand, Living by the F Word. If you love flying, festivals, fashion, food, fitness, fine art, and you live your life with a fulfill it yourself mentality, then you are in fact living by the F Word with me. I would love to be your friend on social media. Please go ahead and add me on all the social platforms that you can find listed in the show notes. I'm at WT Flight Radio for the podcast, and my brand is at Living by the .F Word on most platforms, or just at Living by the F Word. This week, as we enter double digits on the podcast, which I could finally say digits correctly, we have a very special guest joining me on the show. So I will say, I feel like this is a milestone episode because we have hit double digits and we are having our first ever guest, which feels so fucking fire, you guys. I am so hype right now because let me tell you, this is the start of something really interesting. All these interesting conversations that are going to take place by having guests on the show that have a passion for travel. So I'm just so happy to have guests joining me on What the Flight Radio finally. And I do have a growing list of people that I want to have on this show, and I'm just so ready for it, and I hope you are too. Now, if I'm being completely honest, I don't even know how to give this guest the proper introduction because she is, in a lot of people's eyes, an absolute legend. And she is a solo travel enthusiast, a music festival lover, a travelpreneur. Basically, she's an entrepreneur that makes a living off of travel. She also is a fitness athlete, a podcaster, and an absolute badass when it comes to planning exclusive group tours to some of the world's best festivals and parties around the world. Not only that, she is also someone that I love to call my soul sister because we truly were meant to come into each other's lives. And when we did come into each other's lives, I just feel like our souls were previously connected and just destined to meet. And I know that might seem a little weird, but if you know our story or you're about to learn about our story, then you will kind of understand how we helped each other in times of our lives that we needed help. And it just kind of like felt perfectly aligned in that moment. So with that being said, it's actually really hard to believe that I've seen this guest's business blossom from how it started, and I just watched it explode to what it has become over the last 8 years. She is one of the youngest entrepreneurs that I've seen follow their heart and be successful at making dream vacation experiences for young adults. She creates the absolute best experiences executing trips that you could not conjure up or pull off on your own. And these trips leave people with the ultimate memories to last a lifetime. The guest that I'm referring to is the incredibly wonderful Anita Bass, owner and founder of Awake Tours, which is a tour company that specializes in VIP experiences to mega music festivals and well-known global parties. She also has her own podcast, the Anita Bass podcast, where she has interviewed a plethora of interesting guests that she has met through her travels. And the conversations focus on travel, of course, as well as business success and failures and how to achieve your goals, overcome fear, and not give a fuck about what anybody thinks. She is an absolute badass, and it is an honor to have her join me today. So before we do get into that conversation with Anita, for anyone that's unfamiliar with the story of how Anita and I met, she actually hired me to be a tour guide for some of her first ever tours operated in the United States. And both of us really love telling this story because, as I mentioned, we have known each other for close to a decade now, which is really absolutely insane if you think about it. It's kind of a long time. And it was all because of a deep internet search that I did one night. I got home from work and I honestly was just miserable at the time. I was waitressing. I was out of college for a couple of years and I was waitressing and I was just over it. And I was just like, fuck this. I just want to go to festivals for free. I just want to travel for free. And so I was just travel and festival obsessed at that point. And 2013, it was a really big year for solo travel and festival trips for me. And a lot of the stories that I told in my video, How Raving and Solo Travel Changed My Life, on my YouTube channel, Living by the F Word, a lot of those stories were basically the year that led up to 2014, which was really the year that was so massive because that's when I officially started working with Anita. And that was also a year that I started networking heavily within the festival industry. And I got a lot more opportunities with people within the industry as well. So back to how I found Anita. Naturally, I was searching on the internet and I don't even know what I searched, but it had to do with the keywords festivals and free. But I went so far back on the Google page. I mean, it was not on the first few pages. I went back and back and back. You know how you could go up to 10, 12, however many pages there were. And I really dug deep and I found a link for Awake Tours, which was a company based in Australia. But regardless, I reached out to this company and I was like, hey, I'm from New Jersey, but I love traveling. I've attended all these festivals. If you ever need help, let me know. And there's a lot more to it than that. I actually wrote a very formal cover letter and I submitted videos of Groove Cruise after movies that I had made and just kind of showcased how passionate I was about festivals. And I actually just talked about it a little bit in my recent YouTube video, 10 Ways to Festival for Free, or How to Attend Music Festivals for Free. So yeah, go check that one out too. But basically, she hired me for her Coachella tour, and we do kind of touch upon it a little bit in the interview, but basically the tour was a 2-week tour and it was a tour that went to Los Angeles and then out to Coachella, and then after Coachella we did Las Vegas clubs and penthouse parties, and that was the end of the tour. So it was this 2-week absolute bender and it was absolutely amazing. And I'm going to link a blog post that I wrote on my blog about the entire first tour because it was just so hectic. I tore 2 ligaments in my ankle within the first week in a club. There was so much stuff. We missed a flight. We had never met previously and all this stuff was happening and we were running this tour together and it was just absolutely insane, but the best thing that could have happened for both of us at that point in our lives. And really the rest is history. And so I will link that blog post so you could read it because it's one of my favorite things I've probably ever written, was the story about how me and Anita met in that first tour. But really, yeah, after the first tour, we became lifelong friends. And ultimately, I helped her run the Coachella tour for the next 3 years. And I helped her launch the first Tomorrowland tour that she ever did in 2014. And in between all that, we've done California road trips together. I have traveled to South Korea to see her get tattooed for the first time at the world famous Good Morning Town studio. So they are a really famous studio, and myself, her, and some other friends that we met through her tours that were customers, we all went over there and I watched them get tattooed there. But we have a lot of travel stories that I think we both really cherish. And I think we just both really cherish each other and what we did for one another, because she basically made my dreams come true by allowing me to go to festivals for free. And I helped her dreams come true because I helped her get her company off the ground, because she just felt like she needed like that little extra boost of confidence to have someone else leading the tour. And that person was me. So anyways, we do go about it a little bit. And also, definitely after you listen to the interview, I highly encourage that you check out the blog post I wrote, and I'll also be linking her podcast, and she's talked about it over there, and I've been a guest on her podcast, and we've talked about it there. But before we push from the gate and take flight into this episode with Anita, we of course need to get into our Aviation Lingo segment for this week. So each episode, I cover a term in the aviation industry and explain what it means to any of the listeners that are out there pursuing a career in aviation or are just curious to learn more about this very interesting and yet very complex industry. So this week's Aviation Lingo is double chime. So the double chime is a sound that happens after takeoff and before landing of each flight. And I actually use it as a sound effect in each episode to signify the approach to the end of the episode. So I'm going to insert the sound here so that you could hear it. So the double chime is actually the captain that cycles the seatbelt sign and the no smoking sign. He basically turns it off and then turns it back on really quickly. And this signals to the flight crew that they have reached a safe cruising altitude. And usually it's after the aircraft surpasses 10,000 feet. And this also helps at the end of the flight, because you'll hear it there too. You'll hear a double chime, which signals to the crew to prepare the cabin for arrival, which means that the aircraft will start to enter an area below 10,000 feet for the final approach to that destination. So for me personally, and I would say for most flight attendants, the double chime, especially after a long ass day of flying or a long haul flight, I always say, whoop, there it is. Because once you hear that double chime, it signifies that we are almost done. We are almost there. Time to go. Put your carry-on items away. Put those tray tables up. Sit down. Strap in. We're done. Let's go. We need to get to the hotel. That's pretty much what the double chime signifies. Of course, it signifies a lot more than that. There's a lot more technical things that it signifies, but just for anyone tuning in that was ever curious, now you know. So the next time that you fly and you hear that double chime, you can start bragging to the person next to you, hey, I know what that means because I listen to What the Flight Radio and I know all about it. I got to just plug the show. You know what I mean? So plug the show for me, guys. You know what to do. Sharing means caring. I would love for you to share this with anyone that you think would find it useful. And yeah, if you enjoy this episode, please go ahead and tag myself at WT Flight Radio. You could tag me at living by the .f word on Instagram, and of course tag Anita, and we will get into how to follow her and stay in touch with her right now as we take flight into this episode. It's Wheels Up time. Let's talk to the incredible Anita Bass. All right. As mentioned, everyone, please help me welcome the amazing Anita Bass to the show. Hi, Anita. How are you?
Hey, Jess. I'm well. How are you?
I'm so good. Thank you so much for coming on to What the Flight Radio as my first ever guest. I did do a little bit of an intro about how we know each other. But do you want to tell the folks that are tuning in who you are and a little bit about yourself?
Dun, dun, dun. First off, hello, everybody. My name is Anita Bass, and I run a company called Awake Tours, which takes people on tours to music festivals and provides that VIP experiences of them. I've done that for 8 years. And as you can imagine, we're in the peak of the COVID pandemic here with borders closed and whatnot, especially here in Australia. So at the moment, we're temporarily chilling. But yeah, that is how I actually met Jess, and that is my passion. And yeah, that's what I do.
So awesome. Yeah. So Anita and I, our story, I love telling our story of how we met. I feel like I've done it on my YouTube channel before, and I have brought Anita up, I believe actually in episode 1, I think I brought you up and said I wanted you to be on the show. But I just love our story because we were basically internet strangers.
We were, yes.
And
it worked out perfectly.
And then I started helping her run some of her first tours, basically like when she was launching her company. And we traveled to a lot of places because of that together, but also on our own, we've done some cool traveling, some really kind of wow moments.
Amazing random moments. Yes, for sure.
Yeah. Yes. So I just wanted to have Anita on because we both have such a passion for travel and connecting with people. And I just felt like she'd be the perfect fit to be my first guest. Plus, she's like one of the most amazing humans. I just love you so much.
Bless your soul. But no, you helped me a lot as well, for sure. Now, I was just going to mention quickly, I guess, in a roundabout, if you don't know, the way that I met Jess was I was looking for an employee because I needed a tour guide, because at that time I was young and it was just too stressful for me to do everything, and I wasn't confident enough to be a guide. And I was putting out ads here in Australia for tour guide, blah, blah, blah. And I was just getting back absolute, like nothing, like just nothing, or like people who had run like camel tours 30 years ago, like they just, no one had an idea of what I wanted, and the quality just wasn't good. And I was like, oh my God, I'm so stressed. I'm going to have to run it myself. And then randomly, I just got an email from this girl, just like, hey guys, I found you on Google. Is there any chance you're like looking for a tour guide or just anyone who can help in your industry? Like, I'm really keen. And I was like, as if, and I was like, it's too good to be true. And then we kind of like went back and forth a lot, and then it completely checked out. And by a whim, we met up, and it was just completely perfect and exactly what I was looking for. And I was like, well, whoa, like it could have gone so wrong, but it was just so perfect and so random. And yeah.
Right. So the first tour that we ever worked together was Coachella 2014. And I actually had never even been to Coachella or California or Las Vegas, which was basically what the tour was focused around. But I basically took the job so seriously. I wrote a whole cover letter to Anita, to Awake Tours, basically saying like, you know, this is why I'm so passionate about festivals, and these are the festivals I've been to, and I'm pretty confident that even though I've never been to Coachella, I would be able to be a really good guide.
Yeah.
And she trusted me enough to put me on a plane and fly me from New Jersey to Los Angeles. And like, neither of us knew if we were going to show up. And
that was so funny.
As Anita likes to say, she showed up and I was sitting there in the hotel room, and the rest is history.
Oh, that was so good because it all happened so quick. And I was like, yeah, fuck yeah, blah, blah, blah. And then I was coming over with my cousin Kayla, and then I like, we just kind of looked at each other, and she was the first voice of reason. She's like, what if she just doesn't come and she just like got a free ride to LA? Or what if she's not who she says she is? Like, this is really a lot of trust in a fucking stranger. And I'm quite sure we didn't even FaceTime or anything.
We didn't.
Yeah, I just
we did not, because I feel like back then, I feel like it wasn't even that like
thing.
It really wasn't a thing. The Zoom and FaceTime. Yeah. Even like, I remember people back then called it like Wi-Fi. Like when you used to like try to, do you have Wi-Fi connection? Like in like the European restaurants and stuff, like it just, the internet, I mean, it was there, obviously, of course the internet was there.
Instagram wasn't really a thing either, because I remember just before I'd got an iPhone, yeah, I think maybe a year before, an Instagram, but it was when it was all different apps. So yeah, we barely even had anything on that. But you had made a couple of YouTube videos about recaps of previous festivals you had been to, and my cousin Kayla as well, she was like, well, you know, people may be like partying a bit hard and stuff like that. Do you think she's okay with it? No, I said that, and Kayla was like, well, she travels to festivals and stuff. I think she's going to like fit in. She understands the deal if she's been before. I was like, okay.
Right. Yeah. No. Yeah. You were worried about that, and basically Kayla was like, "Did you see the video that she sent you?"
Yeah.
Because I used to do videos for Groove Cruise, and so that was one of the videos that I had sent you that I had created. So, well, anyway, for anyone that doesn't, or actually wants to know more about us, I actually was a guest on Anita's podcast. Do you want to talk about your podcast a little bit, Anita, or?
Yeah, well, I also have a podcast. It's called the Anita Bass podcast for no real reason besides I just needed a name quickly, and I was just like, I'm going to change it. Didn't change it. Basically, I got all the podcast gear, and I intended to travel 2020 when we were booked the whole roster for that year, and I was going to go around and interview people that I met in countries, because I'd always be in like Croatia or something and meet like the coolest old person and be like, oh my god, I need to record you. And so I kind of announced that I was going to do something like that, and then everything went to shit, and I was like, true. True. So then I was like, well, I have all this spare time now, so then I just went about interviewing people who I'd already met, or like people doing big things in business and that, who I'd met through my travels, and then kind of turned into that. I can't remember what episode ours was.
I feel like it was number 6, but I don't know what season it was. It may have been season 2.
I think it was season 2. Yeah. Okay.
Oh, I don't know.
Anyway, it's all tagged in there.
Well, I only wanted to bring that up because a lot of people that are tuning into this podcast are obviously travelers, people that like to travel. This is a podcast for flight crew, frequent flyers, and anyone that gives a ding about aviation and travel. So I think that you've had so many interesting guests that you've met through your travels, and there's been so much educational topics that have been brought up on your podcast. So I just wanted to plug that for everyone to check out before we dive into some of the questions that I came up for you. But you know, just for anyone that's listening, I really don't have a structure for this. I just kind of want to see where the conversation takes us, and we can like talk about travel stories or things that we've done together. But I guess what we should start with is the first question that I have is, what is the current situation in Australia? Because a lot of the listeners, there actually may be a few people tuning in from Australia that were from Awake Tours. So shout out Awake Tours, any Awake Tours fam, Team Woke that's listening, what up? But for any of the listeners that are primarily from the United States, a lot of things have kind of been back to normal here. A lot of people are getting vaccinated. I have had full flights. Festivals are coming back. I mean, it's pretty much full speed here, but I don't think that's really the case by you. So I was just wondering if you want to kind of talk to the people about what you guys are dealing with.
Sure thing. And that's the funny thing, isn't it? Like, because you're not part of the country, you don't kind of know, because you don't think to know. Like, I remember, the short answer is we're not allowed to leave and no one's allowed to come in. Like us and North Korea, the only countries where that's currently happening. And I said that once to somebody on an Awake Tours post, and she was from the UK. And she was like, surely not. There's no way you can't leave. Like, you just have to do quarantine when you come back. And I was like, no, you can't leave. Like, you're not allowed to leave. So yeah, that's the current situation, as it has been since about March. You're not allowed to leave the country unless you apply, of which you can only get over there if you never want to come back, if you're a citizen from another country, and also if it's under humanitarian grounds. But you need to really, really, really fucking try, and you have to promise that you're leaving at least for more than 3 months. I had a friend who had a business in Bali, and he like lived over there and everything, and he got rejected twice. Third time, like 15 pages of documents, blah blah blah, everything. We had these other friends, weren't even from Australia. They tried to leave, weren't allowed to, had to get lawyers in because they had work to get to in America. Like, just hectic. So yeah, so we're not allowed to leave, and people aren't allowed to come in. Basically, they're being super strict here over any cases whatsoever. Like, I'm in Western Australia, of which they shut us down over one case. Like, person wasn't dying or anything, just like one positive case. And so at the moment, we've got hard lock borders. I think they're changing this week. I'm not sure, but so we have our states. And so we've got like, each state is pretty much locked to its own. And then we've got different risk categories. Say I'm in Western Australia, like I think South Australia is like low risk, which means I don't fucking really know, because I try not to look at it because it makes me so angry. But yeah, it has different levels of like quarantine, or if you definitely can't go there or not. So right now, New South Wales, as of last Friday, just extended its lockdown for another 4 weeks. So then that's like a hard lock, no in, no out to Western Australia where I am. But then there's other places where it's just a 14-day quarantine. So I think the easiest lock at this moment is a 14-day quarantine, and there's a few which you just can't actually go to. So that's just within our country itself. And then international is just not even a thought at this point in time. And they reckon there's a 4-phase plan to let us get back to normal, of which we're in obviously the first phase, and the second one will be triggered only when 80% of Australia is vaccinated. And then after that, they're saying they will let vaccinated international students come back, because they're also limiting, even if you are from Australia but you're overseas living, you're not allowed to come back at this point in time unless you're like extremely lucky. So they're limiting anyone coming in by 50% in the next few months. And then the next phase after 80% is letting international students. And then it mentions nothing about unvaccinated travel. And then eventually we'll get back to normal. But at the point in time, I have no idea where that's going to be. Like they said, yeah, it was supposed to be last year, but December. And then they're like March by the very latest. And now they're like, our phase 1 won't even stop by July next year. And it just keeps getting like pushed back. And we were good. And then there was like clusters in Sydney, which is what's happened in the last few weeks. So now it's literally, we're back at like March of last year. Like, yeah. So it's a bit much.
That is absolutely intense.
Yeah.
It was intense here in the United States though, as well. But before I even get into that, everything she's saying is completely true, because as a crew member, we have certain restrictions when we travel to other countries, and Australia is one of them. When we travel there as working crew member, we cannot leave our hotel room. So the crews that are flying from the West Coast of the United States down to Australia, which is pretty much a 16-hour flight from LA even.
Yeah.
They then have a 24-hour layover and they cannot leave their room. But besides that, that's complete. Now I don't even remember what I was going to say going off of that. But I think I do. Basically, in the United States, it was very hectic. Not hectic, but it was very high tension for a long time, because different states were operating differently. Basically, Florida and Texas have been like as if they're their own countries. Everything has just been going on as if nothing has been happening this entire past like year. But things are definitely getting much better now that we are getting vaccinated. So, and I feel like, I think I saw one of my other Australian friends post something that you guys aren't really getting access to vaccines, or no one wants to get vaccinated. I'm not sure which one it is.
I think a bit of both, but more. It is both, but it's more so like, so they announced it and then they like pushed this big campaign against it. And then they were kind of like, oh no, there's too many blood clots. There's too many people getting fucked up. It's no good. And then, so they kind of put out a few too many articles about that. And then everyone was like, well, why would we get that if you're saying this? But then they pushed it again and they were like, and their slogan is like, the vaccine's the only like option we have to get back to normal. But then there's also a shortage. So people are like, okay, cool, we're trying to do what you're saying, but we can't get it until like September, or they've just shut it off now to certain groups or categories and only the other people. So it's a bit of both. Like people like, you're saying it, so we have to do it, and no, we don't have access to it. So that's kind of like making that last a lot longer. Because I know my sister works with somebody and she said her mates were definitely keen, and then they were on the waiting list for ages, and then they're like, no, we've just stopped it. We don't have any access to it. There's a shortage. So a bit of both.
Wow. Wow. Absolutely. Just anyone tuning in from the United States, just realize how grateful you should be that we are moving along here and other places are not. I mean, wow. I know. And it's upsetting to me too, because I would love to come visit you, or I would love to come back or whatever. But even like I said, as a working crew, I would not even be able to go anywhere. So it's just absolutely insane. Well, let's switch gears, because fuck all that.
I agree. I can't wait for it to just be a distant memory. As someone who's backpacked since she was 19, like it's very weird. It's very weird. You said, let me have.
That's actually perfect, because that's kind of my next question for you was, when did you start traveling? We're going to start getting into all like the good stuff now. I wanted to just open the podcast up with that, just so people could kind of understand the position that Anita is in, owning a travel tour company, and also have been such a avid traveler for majority of her life. I mean, pretty much the last 10 years or so or more of her life, she's been a backpacker, like she said. And so I just kind of wanted everyone to kind of see where you're at now. And then now we're obviously going to get into all the fun travel stories and things like that. But yeah, it's a very difficult time still. And everything's not perfect yet. I think that there's a lot of people that don't realize that. So that's kind of why I just wanted to start it off with that. But my first question is, when did you start traveling and what gave you the travel bug?
Well, it wasn't even in my plans, to be blatantly honest. I was, I think, 18, 19, and I was actually dating somebody. And he was like, oh, I want to move to Canada. And I was like, first love and everything. And I was like, then I'll follow you. I'll follow you. And then it was kind of like, oh, do what you want. Like, but I was like, no, I'm going. So I literally applied for a visa to Canada and everything. But he had stuff to do there and like set up and whatnot. So there was like a time, like 4 weeks or so before I could meet him. And I had no interest in travel. Like, I don't know why. I just come from a very like closed-minded family. Like my mum, they all came here from Portugal. And so to them, this is like the greatest opportunity place, which it is true. It's a fucking fantastic place to live and make money. But all I wanted to do really was like get married, buy a boat and a house. And that was, I don't know, travel just didn't even cross my mind. I didn't understand it. I didn't think into it. But then, so he was going to Canada, had all my visa and that ready. I was just like, yeah, whatever. I was pretty much just following him. It wasn't, it's so ignorant and so young. And then before that, I was like, oh, I have 4 weeks free. And then I was like, I'll just do like a Kentucky tour or so, which I think you guys have Kentucky in the US as well. Yeah, and I was like, well, if I can't be with you for 4 weeks, I'm gonna do this. It was kind of like not spiteful, but I was like, yeah, it was. But I was like, oh, I'll just do this like 4 week tour then. I'll go make some friends. Because I think I'd already booked my ticket, so I had to like change something. And then I went there, and it was like my mind was blown. Like my head was like, holy shit. And it was just like the start of everything. So basically, the first place I landed was in London, and I was like so shy and so introverted as like a person, and just, I don't know, insecure and just different and just young. So I think I just turned 20. And yeah, and I landed in London, and then I got a taxi to like a hostel, and it was freezing. And then I met this girl, and then she's like, oh, do you want to come here with me? And I just, that thought of just someone random just being like, let's go somewhere. I was like, that's weird. Like, but I was like, oh, okay. Because I just like felt so strange. And then shit like that just happened for that whole entire week that I was there. And then I was just like meeting people and doing things. And then it was like the realization that you have when you travel, that like your town or where you're from, what everything that you believe in isn't the way the world runs. It's just what you've been made to believe. So like, say examples, I always use religion. Like, so we grew up Catholic, and we're like, this is the only God, this is blah, blah, blah. And then you go to the airport and you'd see prayer rooms for different religions. And you're just like, I believe so intensely in mine, but this whole other side of the world believes so intensely in theirs that there's prayer rooms because they have to stop. And like in my mind, say my parents would be like, their religion's not real, ours is real. I'm like, but you think that here because we're here, but over there, like they have prayer rooms in airports. So even if I don't believe that their thing is real like ours, can we at least open our minds to think maybe our way is not the only way? You know, so kind of things like that happened everywhere. Like you'd meet people, have conversations, or they talk about like things that I remember when I was on that trip, somebody talked to me about like, was it the poly relationship where they have different girlfriends and boyfriends and stuff? And I was so young and I didn't
polygamy
understand.
Or something, whatever it's called, poly, yeah.
Yeah, and when I was young, like, yeah, I don't care about anything now, but it kind of like it scared me a bit. Like all things like this happened and like just opened my mind to a whole new wave of thought just from what I was. And then, yeah, from then on, it was just like amazing. And I felt like safer out there than what I did at home. And I was just like meeting and doing and making friends. And then anytime when I would like stop and settle for a little bit, I was like, but remember all the things that you did like there? And say I'd come back to Australia and spend like 2 months working, and I'd be like, remember what you did 2 months there? Like so much life was lived. And then from then on, it was kind of just like a mission to just make money and go travel. And it was just like, come back, leave, come back, leave. And yeah, so had no intention of traveling, but I'm very glad that I did.
You know, it's interesting because I don't think I ever knew that about you, but how I started solo traveling was almost a similar
Identical.
situation. It was out of spite because of the
Really?
mix. Yes. The
Well, there
guy
we
I
go.
was dating was going to Ultra Music Festival. And when we broke up, I was like, well, fuck that. I'm going to go. And that's how I ended up going the following year. And then that's how like my whole solo travel story that basically everyone has heard on my YouTube channel.
Funny.
And I also did a podcast about why you should solo travel, episode 8. But basically how that all started was kind of a very similar situation. Which I did not know.
That's so funny.
that's what happened with you too. Although I was much older, I would say I do think that that's something that is definitely different with our two countries and our cultures. I feel like Australians, there's lots of travelers. I feel like many times when you meet people, Australians travel the most, and you guys are so far from everything. So it takes a long time to go anywhere from Australia, really.
Yeah, you're not going to leave for less than like a couple months when you're traveling like 24 hours, 3 days, going through all different airports.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is a cultural thing as well. So like, I guess after school, I didn't do that, but people have like gap years after university or so. So you save up basically and you'll go live somewhere else for a year. But I think also it's like a pay thing as well. Like in Australia, I don't know, but you wouldn't be making less than 600 to 800, maybe 800 nowadays a week at that age. So I don't know what the pay rate is like over there. And like some of the guys in the mines can make like $4,000 a week. So it's a lot different when you can just work for a month and have enough to go away for a few months, as opposed to like other countries, or say my family when they lived in Portugal, I don't even know if they ever could save up to buy a ticket to Australia, or if they do, it's like a big thing that they do eventually, you know? So I think it's, I don't know. It's different.
It definitely is different, because I feel like I learned how to solo travel because of Australians. I mean, they were kind of the ones that really like persuaded me to be like, to go, just keep going. I had met Australians when I solo traveled, that first solo travel trip, but they were really the ones that like kind of put that idea in my head that like, hey, you should keep doing this.
Do it.
And they were the ones that were like what you were saying, saving money and going for a long extended amount of time. And it was just such a cool concept to me. And like you said, same thing. I would do the same thing. I would come back, I would work sometimes 6 days a week as a waitress, bartender. And I wouldn't go out after my shifts and spend my money. I would save it so that I could like block. It was definitely not like 3 months at a time, but I feel, because I feel like it's hard to take off that long unless you quit your job here in America. It's just like such a different work. It's like a different work culture. Yeah. But
and I guess you can kind of get away with that. Oh, you're a bit closer, aren't you? Anyway, to Europe and that. And when maybe you go away, you could go to maybe New Orleans or Texas or something and still do a major music festival. So you're still traveling solo, but you're not exactly doing what we're doing and spending 3 days on a plane to get to the other side of the country for 2 days festival. Yeah.
For anyone that like doesn't know, here's some like perspective. I met Anita and a bunch of some of our other friends, some people that were on tour in South Korea, because Anita decided she wanted to get a tattoo. And
yes, I did.
I flew, what was it? I guess it was, it was probably 6 hours to the West Coast for me. And then from there, it was probably another like, I don't know, 10 hours. So it was probably like, it was a decent amount of travel time for me, or maybe it was like 12 hours total. But for them to go from Australia, it was also over 12
I remember,
hours.
That was age.
But they were in the same time zone. This is what bugs me out. Like South Korea and Australia are basically like in the same time zone, but then it was like a 12-hour flight still. That's how far Australia is.
I booked it and it was the shittest airline and the cheapest. And we got there and Brendo's like, where's the TV screens? We're like, there's none. And they're like, where's the food? They're like, it's none. And like, you can't not have food and TV screens on a fucking flight that's over 8 hours long. But I was like, my bad. I went the cheap route.
Was that? I'm just curious. Do you remember? You don't remember?
Air Asia for sure. Yeah, we did Air Asia. Yeah.
Wow. No food service. Wow. That's
Yeah,
shocking to me, but
my bad. You
wow. All right.
get what you pay for.
So yeah, that's, we can go into that story a little later, but I was just trying to give some people that have never been to Australia. I remember I went to Australia and then I actually went back to actually, which is another question I have for you later, but I guess I'll just bring it up. Anita created a festival in Australia
Yes.
and I traveled to go to it. And my whole point of bringing that up was the fact that I remember when I went back to Perth, which is Western Australia, I just remember going back there for the second time and I was like, I cannot believe that I ended up in Perth twice in my lifetime because it's so fucking far.
I think it's like the second most isolated city in the world. It is, but it's true. It's a long way to come for a little town.
But yeah, it was such a fun experience. And actually, so I'll just skip to that question here. Why don't you tell us about the festival you created, and would you ever do something like that again? Because you are really great at planning group tours and you're really great at making sure people have an amazing time. And it was so much fun. And I don't think, especially for the Americans that are listening, I think it was something so different that people from Western Australia had like never really seen before.
Yeah.
So would you ever consider doing something like that again, especially now since you're isolated in Australia?
COVID. I really, really wanted to, and it was awesome. Like, I'll explain what it was first, I guess. So it was called Nocturnal Neverland, and my idea was to have like a tour cross festival and bring in the ideals that I had like learned from around the world. So it was like an old school camper bunker house in the middle of the woods, which had like 2 levels, and it slept like 84 people and had space for camping outside. So like we sold the tickets and it was like secret location pickup, and then the bus came and picked you up. And then we had like a comedian on the bus and then brought it down. But inside the house, it was like we'd made all these different areas like to do like rave and culture. Like there was like Bicky Burrow, which I guess was the drug chill section, and it just had like funny little subtle jokes and had like all this psychedelic painting all over the wall. And we had like, there was like an old fire pit. We didn't know what to do with it. And I remember we made a joke and it had like my mixtape. And then some people got the joke because like my mixtape is fire, because at the time everyone was saying that, yeah. But there was just like all this shit everywhere. Then there was like a hairdresser. There was like a glitter beauty salon. We had all outfits you can change. There was like a place where you write all stuff to each other. There was like a post office where you write a letter to your sober self. There was that random shit. We had like Donald Trump toilet paper. We had 2 stages.
I remember.
That was great. We had like, silent disco. I had like earplugs for everyone. I put them in little like pill bags under their pillows. And like just random little things. 2 stages, artists. But yeah, so I guess it was like a legal bush stuff, but a tour. But it was dope, and there was like no reception or anything. It was amazing. I went for like 2 days. I want to do it again. It would be dope. The only thing is it was just like I didn't make money on it at all. Like I lost quite a bit of money. And it was a lot of money to lose for like nothing, I guess. And at that time I was doing tours as well. So that's why I didn't do it for a couple of years after, because I was like, what am I making money from? Tours. Okay, well, this festival took like 90% of my life and head for like 8 months. And if I did it again, like I'd literally have to price it, because I think that was my bad, because it was my first thing. I was like, I don't want to make it too expensive. I priced it like $90 a ticket or something, which is ridiculous for a 2-day festival. Like the buses themselves cost like tens of thousands of dollars plus accommodation, plus they got like some free drinks and paying DJs. And we made the stages, like we created the stages like with the stage production thing. So I'm like, $90 a ticket at like 100 people or so was not going to cover even the fucking like buses. So that was my bad. So to do it again, I'd literally have to like position it in people's heads as the festival experience and charge no less than $400. I was supposed to do it this year, but then with the borders shutting, like in Australia as well, I was just like, fuck it. And luckily, like, thank goodness I did, because we've been like shutting over cases. So it'll randomly be like, all good. And then they'll be like, oh no, from 11:59 p.m. tonight, like the East, New South Wales shut to Western Australia. And we had people like Jess and Jacinta and that who were going to come, Jess Tan, over. And I was
Those
like,
are some of our friends from the tour that she's talking about. For anyone tuning in, she's talking about Jacinta and Jess are two girls that were on our tours for quite some time that we became lifelong friends with. So
yeah. And then, so it was just like too much of that kind of stuff happening. And WA had gone into like 3 snap lockdowns. But thank goodness I didn't, because the week before, what would have been the dates that I'd advertised, we went into a lockdown where events weren't allowed to happen again. And I was like, well, thank fuck, because I'd be very angry like if I spent the last 6 months doing it. So it'd be
probably would have been very intense, even with the festivals over here in the United States. It's been very, some are going, some are not, because of the local restrictions, just like what you're talking about. But I wanted to bring this up just because this was such an impressive event, and it really just showcased how passionate Anita is about bringing people together for a good time. And it really was amazing. It reminded me of one of like the old school raves, like basically like how she was saying, a secret location. No one knew the address. Only people knew where we were getting picked up. So we had to go there, and we got picked up, and she had it all sorted. And actually the comedian she had on the bus is quite famous now, touring with some really famous American comedians now. And I just feel like you're always like a step ahead with knowing people. So it was just such an amazing time. And so I was just curious if you were going to pursue that once things open back up again, or if you think you're just going to focus more on the tours, since countries will hopefully be opening their borders again. You can, because some of the tours, for anyone that doesn't know, I guess we could talk about that a little bit too. We touched upon how it's group VIP experiences, 2 music festivals, but you do Yacht Week in Croatia. You do spring break in Mexico. You have done I think it's Rampage. It's a festival in
Belgium.
Netherlands. Oh, that's in Belgium. Okay.
Yeah,
For some reason I thought it was in the Netherlands.
Close enough, but we started in Amsterdam though in the tour. That's our first day, and then we bus over.
Right. But so I guess you would probably more so focus on bringing the tours back first.
I think that's what I am going to do, actually, because it's like I can't afford to lose money. Well, obviously now, but like I'd like to do it again, but when I'm in a position to, if I did it at a loss, or if like something happened, then I'd be like, oh, okay. Whereas right now that would be like detrimental to the business forever and always, and it wouldn't open again if we lost that type of money again. But no, definitely. And I think by the time it comes around to that point, because I think we did that right at the beginning, like, and Awake Tours was like kind of small-ish, and so like now like 90% of my clientele were from Western Australia anyway, so I feel like when it comes to that, it would just be like a lot easier to sell, as opposed to back then when I don't even know how we sold it, because the name really wasn't that big.
So many people there though. It really
there was
it
was great.
There really was a lot of people there. It was like amazing. All
definitely
hand done set design for the stages. Everything was like very impressive for basically like a one-woman show with a little bit of help. And I do actually believe you had your friend that helped you do a lot of the designing though on your podcast as well. So yeah, definitely go check out Anita's podcast. She has some really cool people on there and stories on there. But let's stick to Awake Tours a little bit, since it's such an amazing company. It basically, Anita gave me a dream job. A lot of people don't realize that, because she lost money by having me too. I feel like she didn't have to have me as a tour guide, and she made that decision, and then she brought me back for several years, and it honestly was a dream job for me to be a part of that with her. So when you started your company though, why did you want to start a tour company in like the travel tourism industry for starters? And then why did you decide to incorporate festivals?
Well, there's 2 stories to this one, and I'll try and make them quick. And I'm not sure if you already know them. So before I left to go to Canada, so I left for Canada 2 months after I turned 20. So before that, so when I was 19, It was actually a mistake. So my brother Adam, he exaggerates sometimes, and then he told me a story. He was like, "Oh, our cousin Daniel, he went around America and followed this rave around." And then I was like, "That's so cool." And at this point in time, I was like, adventure, everything. So in my head, I was like, "I'm going to make an adventure company." I don't know, I was just an extremist, and I like actually made the website and everything, made the tours. It looked like shit, but it was like the world's biggest bungee jumps, the world's biggest skydives, the world's best surfing spots. And then one of them was a music festival, which was Coachella. And then I spent so long on this website, and I actually like got the travel agent license, registered the business. Like I think the license is like $12,000 or so, but I'd like saved to go to Canada so that I had that money there. And then I went traveling, and then I was over there. And while I was there, I was obviously forgot about it. And I was like, what a stupid idea. That's money wasted. And then when I was there, someone actually booked like the tour, like booked the Coachella tour. And I was like, what the fuck? I was like, what do you mean? Like, where did you find us? And I think we're like page 12 on Google. Like the website looked like absolute trash. I wouldn't have trusted it. And then I was like, wow, this is random. I was like, this is so strange. And then, yeah. And then so I was like, okay, so I can go all in or not. And then at that point in time, Scoopon or Groupon, I don't know if I think you guys have one of either.
Groupon, yeah.
Was, yeah. So we have Scoopon here, and they was first starting out as well. And granted, yeah, like they wouldn't take me now. But I like hit them up and I was like, hey, do you guys mind like helping me sell this to people in Australia? And they're like, yeah, fuck yeah. So we did it at some like discounted price. And yeah, that's actually how we filled up that first tour, which is so random. But then fast forwarding, my cousin Daniel, he came on a tour once, and he was like, how do you think of this? And I was like, because of you, Daniel. I was like, you traveled around America and did the tour, the festival. And he's like, no, I fucking haven't. He's like, I haven't even left Australia. And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, your brother lies. He's like, I literally went to one festival in Sydney once. And I was like, oh, well, thank you. Thanks for that. But like, that's like the first of how the website started. But then in that time, like I had obviously gone traveling, went to Canada, did a few other tours of other things. And then, yeah, I kind of realized that whenever you do tours, people just like kind of take you to the places that they take you to. They'll be like, oh, we're going to Vegas. But they just like put you off the strip, some cheap place, and they take you to a club, which they charge you $10 to get in. And it's a club no one's ever really heard of. So then in there, like I saw that obviously the music festival one worked. And then I was like, well, what if I just like kind of focused on giving everyone like the proper experience of the place? And then like, in line with the extremism, like I just want the best of everything. And so yeah, that's when I guess I started making like the Vegas one and stuff like that, and kind of leveled up everything. So instead of just going there, we'd get like a decent hotel but on the strip, and like say now fast forward to the Vegas, like they meet the artists, we stay in a penthouse, like we get cabanas at the pool table, and it's just like the extra large experience of the place we're going to, and it's actually actual. And then, yeah, so like with Croatia, instead of just doing like the islands, we have like the VIP yachts and we have like DJs. So it's just, yeah, so it's kind of like both stories coincided. It started off adventure company, wasn't supposed to be what it is. And then from there, and I kind of just on my own travels figured out what I would have wanted from a tour company, and then did it. Well, yeah, long story short, but that took 8 years.
Yeah. And I mean, the tours are really impressive, especially if you don't really know how to go about booking a yacht with a group of people that you want the same type of like-minded people. So it's like, okay, if you know that you're going to Ultra Croatia and you know you're going to be partying on a yacht, then you kind of know, okay, this is like a group I want to be a part of. If you know, like you want to go to Coachella and the tour also is Los Angeles and Vegas in a penthouse party, you know, it brings the right type of crowd, but it really is amazing to see how much it's progressed from some of the first tours that we did together, because that was at the beginning of the company.
Yeah.
So it's like really amazing to see the video work and the photography and everything from the tours now, and how much the company has grown. So going off that, and you don't have to answer this if you don't have a favorite answer, but what do you feel like was your most successful tour or the most memorable one? And it doesn't, you don't feel obligated to say one with me. I truly am just curious, because if you guys will be really impressed when you go and check out Awake Tours and the photos and the videos. I mean, it just, first of all, when I first started with the company, which was years ago, we're talking about 8 years ago now. I mean, I had such a blast. Like it was amazing. And it's only gotten better. Like I actually want to come on a tour now, like
Yeah.
as a guest.
Oh, bless you. I think it started, I don't know if it was year 4 or year 5 of it, but it was kind of like when I started taking it seriously and put all my money into marketing. So that was like, there were 2 tours. I think it was the first EDC tour I ever ran. And then it was also when we switched the boat to the mega yacht. And I think they were in the same year. So yeah, I think that was year 4 or 5 of the company. And I think that was so great because in the beginning, I was kind of like finding my way and not really knowing. And even the marketing was kind of like, and I've mentioned this before on my podcast, like I didn't really understand or know. And like Instagram was kind of new. And so I was just kind of marketing to everyone, like, oh, look at this building, like nice building here. Like, and I just didn't know. I was kind of just like copying or looking at, say, what the other bigger tour companies have done. And then I was like, well, what the fuck would you want to see? And because of that marketing was so vague, I was getting people who were kind of like so vague. And it was hectic and party on the tour. But then when they rocked up, they were like, oh, I didn't expect this. And I was like, why don't I just show everyone exactly what it is? And I guess I don't have to report to any marketing people or anything. I was like, so I kind of can show like the hecticness of it, which right now Facebook takes down most of the videos. So I have to be careful. Like it's changed a lot.
Does it really? It's like censored?
It gets flagged. Yeah, if there's any like
really,
even just like people's butts or boobs or anything, even just invade.
Look at Instagram. There's
I know.
basically nudity on there.
I know, it's softcore porn. I know. So yeah, when I started just doing that, and I think that was the year of that year, like I'd marketed it a bit more full on. And then that's when I spent all the money because I was like, fuck it, I'm not really making money from this anyway. Because I didn't know how to price it. And I was pretty much just working my like other full-time jobs and putting money towards the tours. And then so that year I was like, fuck it, I'm just going to show exactly what it is. So I started off just doing like the Snapchat things, which I had on my actual phone. And that gained like traction because I'm like, oh, is this what it's like? And then that year, that's when I got like Scott, where I was like looking up videographers everywhere. And then I found him and he did like the Bay Dreams one in New Zealand. And it was just like phenomenal. And then that's when I met Camille. I actually met Camille because of Nocturnal Neverland, that event. And then I was like,
yes, I remember in my head,
that. I was like, yeah. And I was like, fuck, he's good. And I was like, is it worth it? I don't know. It's a lot of money. And I was like, fuck it. So I asked them both and I was like, hey, do you guys like want to come with me to Vegas? And I think Scott could get to Croatia. And then I was like, and we just make like full after movies. I want you just like go all out and blah, blah, blah. And yeah, obviously it wasn't cheap sending like everyone over, but it was just fucking phenomenal. And then from then, because at that point in time, like the tours were exactly what I wanted them to be. We'd ironed out all the bullshit. And I was a confident tour guide and we kind of knew our niche and what worked. And then that in line with the videos and everyone actually had the best time was just like phenomenal. And then from then, yeah. So it was kind of like perfect timing. But as I say, if I had Scott and that in the beginning doing the videos, like that probably wouldn't have worked because I was just figuring out my way and it wouldn't have been true to what it is. Like
there was a lot of things you had to iron out in the beginning because it was
for sure.
It was very new, to you, which is why she had hired me because like she said, she felt like she couldn't handle doing all the background work and also operating the tour. Like she needed someone to be talking to the people coming on the tour. So that's how I got involved. But then once she actually found a system, it all kind of pieced together and now it's so dope. Love it. So going off of, what I think that you made a lot of sacrifices. I think that even bringing me, Anita basically flew me all over the place. I did 3 Coachella tours with her. I also helped her launch her first Tomorrowland tour. So she basically flew me everywhere, got me these festival tickets, hotel accommodations, everything for me to help her, which in my opinion, I feel like she helped me more than I even helped her. That's what I always say in all my videos.
No, I'm like,
but I guess that kind of leads me into like my next question of like, what type of advice do you have for people that want to pursue something that's kind of out of society's norms? Because running a festival tour group company is definitely something very rare and unique, I think. And
Yeah.
I think a lot of people are very quick to give up on an idea they have, whereas you stuck with it. And even now you're facing some challenges.
Adversity, yeah, for sure.
But I
Um,
feel like it will be extremely successful, at least in another year or two, once things do bounce back. I think
yeah.
that it's going to just really take off even more than it already was. And so, what type
Yeah.
of advice do you have for anyone out there that's trying to pursue something, that maybe their family doesn't agree with, or, their friends say, oh, that's silly, or, whatever?
Yeah. First up, don't listen to them. I guess, well, first and foremost, the most important thing is that it's actually something that you like. And I've said this to my own one because it's like, it's really hard. Like, you're going to fail, you're going to get shit on, you're going to like give up all your money, and you're going to have everyone tell you it's stupid. So, like, if it's something that you don't like, you're going to listen to them. Like, you're going to be like, oh, you're right. Because, and I always say it's like baking a cake. Like, when you baked a cake, like this, and this, and this, you put it in the oven, it's going to come out, it's going to pretty much look like a cake, give or take a few things. But when you're doing something that you've never done before, or that maybe hasn't been created, you don't have a recipe and you don't know because it's in your head. So you're actually creating it. So when people are around you and they're like, that's stupid, it's not going to work, or they're asking you questions, you don't have the evidence to be like, no, it will. So you literally have to back yourself. And it's hard and it's stressful and it's shit and it literally makes you want to cry. So, like, if it's not actually something that you care about, you just give up at the first bit of evidence that it's not what you're supposed to be doing, because you're like, oh, they're right. And you might spend like a few months or a few years, and then they're like, are you still doing that thing? And you're like, yeah, you're right, I'll give up. So if it's not like something that you don't like, you're going to give up. But yeah, I always say to everyone, like, don't take advice from anyone unless you want to be in their position, because people are always going to tell you that it's stupid, because it's like, it is annoying and it's frustrating, because I would never tell someone their thing stupid, but it's also not their job to get what you're doing. Like, it's not, you don't get the right of having them be like, you're great, you're wonderful, because you also haven't proven anything. And like, they're not going to get it. Say my parents, like, I was supposed to be a lawyer, and I like finished that and told them I was working at a restaurant and a bar and an office to save up and spend on this travel thing on the internet. And they just were like, what? Like, didn't understand it, but it's not their job to get it because it's not inside of them. So yeah, I normally just tell people, don't take advice from people unless you want to be where they're at, because people will shit on you. And like I had people like friends and that, but more so I think because they care about you, but they just don't know how to word it without crushing your soul. Like, because you're spending a
Right.
lot of money, and yeah, you're spending a lot of money and you're spending a lot of time. So you have people, my mum will like, she's so quiet, but she ran, who's like, you still doing that thing? Like, go talk to your other jobs and ask if they'll have you back. I'm like, no, mum, you don't get it. Like, and they'll be the ones to tell you that it's stupid. And then like, when you're obviously like, as I said, it took 5 years before I ever got anywhere. So like, in that time leading up to it, and people like, oh, it's dumb. Or even like some of my friends would be like, oh, so how's that going? And like, it's obviously not going like that well. You're like, oh, it's okay. But like, I know that it's going to work eventually. And they're like, oh, okay. But you can see everyone in their heads just like, you're a fucking idiot. And I had like a couple of mates. I remember I had one person I went to school with, and I had lunch with him once, and he was like, hey, well, explain this travel thing that you're doing then. And then I was like, no, I just can't be bothered. Like, you're too negative. And he's like, well, tell me, because it sounds pretty stupid. And I did. And he's like, and you think that's going to work? And then I was like, man. And I literally was just like, I can't sit with you. But like, people, yeah. So just don't listen to them if you feel like inside of you it is something that you actually want to do. And you'll know, because if it's not, you'll give up. Yeah,
Yep.
don't take their
So,
advice.
and I think that goes with like, even if you want to travel, maybe there's someone that found this podcast that is tuning in that has never done a solo trip or has never done a group tour or wants to do something, but
Yeah.
they just don't want to take that leap. And then they ask opinions of their friends, like, should I do this? Or do you want to come with me? And everyone's like,
Yeah.
whatever. But I feel like most of the people that are listening to this show are pretty open-minded and travel loving people. But
Yeah.
I don't know. Someone may listen to this a year from now who has just started their travel journey. So that's why I wanted to bring
Yeah.
that question up in general, because it kind of is applied not just to, starting a company or pursuing something that you want. It could be literally pursuing anything. And I think that's really great advice to just kind of stick to your guns and Yeah, you can't
do it.
really listen to people that, I like how you put it. You said you can't make them feel what's inside you.
Yeah, it's not
Like
their
it's
job
not
to know
inside
anyway.
them. So that's
Yeah.
like a really interesting way of bringing that up. I like that a lot.
Yeah. And even if it's aside from business, as you mentioned, travel, 99% of your family or friends probably won't understand you if you tell them you're going to travel. If we're just going to focus on travel, like no one will get it. They will just think that you're wasting your money, you're gallivanting around the world, or they'll ask you what you're running from, or they'll tell you that you're stupid. But you're just collecting memories and experiences. And some people, that's just their life. Like you just move, experience, go, move, experience, go. But to somebody who gets anxiety if they don't live in the same house for their whole life and they just like, I just don't understand, like you're fucking nuts. You try to explain it to them, they're just going to make you feel like shit. Like there's a certain breed of people who can put on a backpack and go for 6 months and they think that's awesome. Like even I remember I was training my coach and I was like, I'm going to move to Melbourne. She's like, what do you mean? I was like, I'm bored. I'm just going. And she's like, don't you have bills to pay or something? Like, what do you mean? Don't you want to put your clothes in like your cupboard? And I was like, no. She's like, I could never live like you, but you go do that. But yeah, when it comes to travel, they won't understand. Your parents probably won't, especially if they've never traveled or like if they've come from a country where like this is the promised land and like you're giving it up to go travel. Like just do it. Just do it. They'll be happy
just
eventually.
Do it. That's always my advice too. I just did a whole episode on solo travel. I'm like, just fucking do it.
Just do it. And don't wait for your friends as well. That's a phenomenal tip. Never wait for your friends because you'll be waiting forever.
I couldn't agree more. I've said that so many times. I say that all the time. That's my advice. Like you cannot wait on other people to plan these things that you want to do because time will just tick by and you will not go. You'll meet the right people along the way on your journey. You definitely will. All right. You brought up, and I don't want to forget, but you brought up your coach. And actually, this is something that I didn't have written down, but it just triggered a memory of when we traveled Anita and I, we met up before we did one of our Coachella tours and we went to San Francisco and Santa Barbara. And we kind of just went down we did a whole 101 road trip in California.
Yeah.
But at the time she was training heavily, pursuing a fitness competition. And she looked fucking hot. She looked so fucking hot. Anyway, you were so disciplined with your diet and I guess you're quite disciplined when it comes to a lot of things, but do you have any tips for people, since this is a travel podcast, on how to keep your energy levels up when traveling or anything like that?
That is the hardest thing, isn't it? Do you mean like in regards to like eating and stuff like that as well?
Yeah, eating or even exercising on the road, because you were very disciplined. I mean, I know you were doing a competition. I mean, it was an actual full-blown fitness competition that she was entering. But I think that it's really important to bring up because I think sometimes you lose that when you're traveling and you kind of just, I mean, of course you're walking around, but yeah, I feel like it's kind of hard to stay that disciplined, and you definitely were. So I feel like you're the right person to ask.
No, I think the biggest thing, well, for me personally, is food. Like I get so sick if I was eating like burgers and chips every day, like I'd actually end up getting the flu. Like, so I think just like planning ahead or making sure, I don't know, we're staying at hostels, so making sure the hostels has like kitchens and stuff like that, and like pre-planning, or I eat oats and tuna, like canned vegetables and stuff like that is always a good backup. I think that's what we always had, like tuna, oats, and bars on the road. But yeah, just literally as a general everything. And even at festivals, I tell people just make sure that you eat right and you're eating some form of cleanness, although obviously it's a bit hard and it's not like we do that every day. But yeah, if you're eating like sausage rolls, pies, burgers and stuff, you just will end up getting sick and you end up losing days traveling. So yeah, tell people sleep, especially when people come on tours, they think it's cool not to sleep. I didn't sleep last night and I'm not going to sleep tonight. I'm like, bro, you're going to die. You're going to lose like 3 days and be in your room. Like, that's not cool. go to bed. So definitely just like drinking water, especially with all the alcohol and stuff that people do when they party, drinking water and just eating the right food. And then you should be okay. As for training, I think we did a few like room exercises or tried to find a gym along the way, but that to me is probably the hardest part for sure, trying to find a gym. And then sometimes when you're in the travel mode, you just like, I don't want to go to the gym. It's not enjoyable. But now I'm much older and I kind of need to make sure I do that when I go, because I just get sick so quickly. But yeah, food 100%. Package it up, put in containers, or at least you guys have like Whole Foods and stuff like that. Like there's heaps of much better places now, and they've got like packets of boiled eggs or salads where you can make food. You just kind of have to make a little bit more of an effort. But to me, it's worth it, because I try not to sometimes, and then I just get so sick that I'm like, cool, now I've ruined my travels. But yeah, just keeping in mind that you're doing it not to look good, but to just not fuck your body up, really.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I think the rest is also essential. Totally. As I say that to a lot of people, the festival goers that are tuning in know that I say that a lot, like, listen to your body. I feel like we've both been doing this now for so long that you just learn that there will be another opportunity to see whatever you wanted to see. So if you miss it because you sleep, oh, well, you know. But you trained somewhere too. I can't remember, overseas somewhere. You went and did some type of training.
Oh, yeah.
What
you mean the Muay Thai Tiger?
Yeah. Do you want to talk about that at all? Or, I mean,
yeah, well, that's right.
But it's just kind of cool. Like,
yeah, well, that's where I'd normally go. Sorry, I just cut you off again.
Oh no, it's fine.
That's where I'd normally go in between tours. So there's a place, you fly into Phuket and it's in Chalong, Chalong, and there's like a fitness street dedicated to fitness. So there's like 3 main gyms there. There's like Unit 27, Tiger Muay Thai. I haven't trained at the other one, but it's called Titan. And yeah, it's pretty much like a school campus, and it's got a daily schedule of about 10 classes. There's like an MMA part, so a lot of the UFC fighters will go out there and do their training camps, but if not, there's also fitness, and there's just like all the restaurants are dedicated to fitness, so they're all like egg white omelets and stuff like that, and then there's just massages and hotels, so you just go there and pretty much train and relax. So yeah, I did that in between that one, and that's what I'd normally do if I was doing like America to Europe, and then it was like more expensive for me to fly home to Australia to sit down and then come back. So yeah, I'd go out there. Yeah, and I think you and me went to Gold's Gym as well. Remember when we went to Gold's Gym?
Yes, we did.
That was so awkward. Not awkward, but like, not awkward. I remember some guy. Yeah.
We worked out at the Gold's Gym in Venice Beach, like the most famous, where Arnold Schwarzenegger worked out and trained, basically, that where he started his career. We did do that. We've done some cool things together. Like if we go back to, okay, I love telling the tattoo story just because I feel like that was, well, first of all, I just noticed that Morningtown is on the filters on Instagram. I mean, I just started noticing that. I didn't realize how famous this tattoo place that we went to was. And I'm still tattooless for anyone that's listening. I just went and watched. I went and watched Anita and Brendo and Jess Tan and her boyfriend, a bunch of our friends, get tattooed in Korea, because that is basically, Anita was like, well, you could just fly over, can't you? And I was like, yeah, I can. And so I literally did. And that's like the type of mentality that flight attendants and flight crew have.
And then me and Brenda were drunk. We're like, we'll go to South Korea. And then we just text you. And I was like, hey, do you want to come to South Korea? And you're like, when? And I said the dates. You're like, okay, I'll try to get it off. And then you just rocked up. And I was like, that's so random. I don't know many people who would do that. It was the most random place to go. I would never have gone there, but it was one of my favorite places. It was so beautiful and nothing like what I thought it would be.
Oh my gosh. I was just talking to someone I was flying with yesterday about the Line Friends, the brown bear, there's like this cartoon series that's over there, and it's in all their shops. And I still have postcards from there. And yeah, it was a really fun trip, and it was really definitely something unique with our travel experiences that we've done. But I feel like I've pretty much asked a lot of things that I wanted to ask you, unless you just kind of want to talk about anything you have planned once things opened up. Or I guess right now it's just been so dragging on that at this point there's no plans. You just want to get the fuck out. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we still, because everyone obviously who had their 2020 holidays is still waiting to do it as soon as we can. So yeah, if anyone's keen, ever, we got what are we doing? We come through. I can't even remember it all by heart. We got Cancun spring break. We got Coachella, Tomorrowland, EDC, where we do the week leading up to it.
Are you going to do Lost
Thailand full
Lands?
moon party, Lost Lands. Yeah, that's actually going ahead. That's going ahead, isn't it? In the next few months, I had to sell our glamping tickets.
There
Interesting.
are so many people, like the whole basehead community, that is like just like so into Lost Lands, and
Yeah.
and so I was curious. I think I remember seeing that on your site, and I was like, ooh, I've been trying to get Anita to come to Electric Forest and do a tour for Electric Forest for so long.
I've actually heard
years.
it's one of the best. I've heard it's one of the best. You keep saying it. I've heard it from a few other people as well.
It is. So
it is.
when you're ready to do that tour, let me know.
I'm ready now, so let me out.
Right.
I'm ready now. Yeah, and Burning Man as well. We're not allowed to run a tour to Burning Man. Obviously, I've asked them a million times. Because they're built on the ethos of not making money, and so they're like, if you run a tour, you obviously make a profit.
Would be
that's completely fair enough.
Decommodification, that principle. Yeah,
for sure. And I was like, well, that's fine. We'll still end up seeing you sometime. They're like, we look forward to meeting you. Yeah, but Burning Man. But I don't think I'm ready for Burning Man, or if I am, I'm going to be sober and go with a camp who's gone before. And I love explaining it to people, because a lot of people just think it's a normal music festival, and they're like, oh, I'm going to go with my girlfriend and go to Burning Man. I'm like, you have to prepare. You can't just rock up with some like glitter on your head. You got to think of water and everything. And is it still that there's no money at all? It's all barter, so you can't really exchange anything for cash.
Only thing that is for sale in Black Rock City is coffee at Center Camp and ice at Arctica, which is the camps that are basically in the main plaza areas that sell ice.
Yeah.
That is it.
No shit. Yeah.
Everything is a gifting community, because one of the principles is gifting.
So, exactly.
Yeah. And a lot of the things that the principles is as well, communal effort and radical self-reliance, and a lot of the principles would definitely go against if you had any type of group tour that you're selling.
Oh yeah, for sure.
You could definitely pull together a group and make. I
think we'll all end up going anyway. Yeah.
But I do think that you need to come with me first before you do that.
Yeah, definitely.
Do you remember when I found Camp Anita at Burning Man and I sent you the picture? Do you remember that?
I don't actually remember that.
I ran in 2017. I randomly came across a camp that was called Camp Anita.
Yeah. I remember how it changed your life.
And I sent the picture to Anita, because it obviously reminded me of her, because she's really the only Anita I know. So
bless you.
Yeah. All right. I want to just do some rapid fire questions that I have in my head, and then I will let you go, because Anita's going to be going back to work tomorrow. So she was so kind. First of all, thank you for coming on the show, but let me do some rapid fire questions.
Okay.
What city kind of took you by surprise? Maybe a city that you traveled to that you were not expecting it to be what it was.
Probably South Korea then. That's the only thing I can think of, because the rest I kind of had an idea. South Korea I thought would be Thailand or Bali, and it was Japan. And so I've never been to Japan, but now I want to. North Korea was crazy, and it was beautiful. There was little, I remember there's a cafe with 4 streets in it, and another one, 4 seats in it, and another thing with all post-it notes that you just walk in and order and turn around, and everyone was dressed up, men in suits, the women looked like little doll. It was just nothing I'd ever seen before. And wonderful. So yeah, South Korea. It was
really interesting. We did a whole tour when we were there, and it is really interesting, the river that divides South Korea from North Korea, and why there's no boats in it. If you ever go there, there are no boats or basically anyone that is found in the river gets shot dead, because they don't know if it's someone trying to break into the other side of the country. It's, thought that was so interesting. I didn't even think about it. There's this huge body of water and no boats. Like I didn't even think about, oh, why there are no boats or anything sailing in there. I didn't even think of it until we were on that tour. So it really was very interesting place. Really kind of like a sad story too, because how families are still separated for so long. And just, but very, very nice. South Korea and Seoul was absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
For me, it's Istanbul. I think that would be my answer.
I've never been.
That I never expected to, like, I really didn't plan to go there. And then I ended up going, and for only 2 days. And I do think it was helpful that I had a friend from Canada that I got put in touch with through another friend. And I met up with him. And since he lived there, he really took me to a lot of, I think he kind of made the trip to that city better. But I loved that city. It was like absolute structured chaos. Like, you know, like cars, people, and dogs crossing the road, like all different directions, but it just like worked. There was like no accidents. Whereas in the United States, it's like we have lights and crosswalks and people are getting killed. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, so it's just so interesting. And the food and everything about it, very, very interesting. Okay. Rapid fire question. This is supposed to be rapid fire. And now we're going. Now I'm talking instead of you.
No, it's good.
Okay. What is the nicest hotel you have stayed in anywhere that you were just like blown away?
Oh, there's been a couple. I have a vague memory of one being decent, but I can't remember where the fuck it was. I was going to say Marina Bay Sands, but the room there wasn't as good, but it was just because of the infinity pool that's in Singapore. But there was a place, and I can't even tell you where it was in Vegas. It may have been something really random like Bally's or so. It was on the middle of the strip. But like basically I booked it because I was it was like the night before tour, and I'd booked it because it was like cheap. I think it comes to like $40 or so. But then because I booked it through my travel agent thing, I didn't know, but they upgrade you sometimes because I bring like so much business. It was like a travel agent profile, which anyone can get, but it was like the one I'd been using for tour for that whole year. So I'd given them fucking like hundreds of thousands of dollars in booking. So I went up to my room and I was like tired, and I was expecting to go to like poxy little small room, and I opened the door and I was just like, what the fuck? And they'd upgraded me to like the top like suite penthouse thing, and I just like walked in and there was like this big boardroom table. I opened all the blinds. It was like the Vegas Strip, and then there was like this random like bath in the corner, these chairs, this big king bed. Walk into another section, was like walk-in wardrobe with mirrors everywhere, this like double shower, and then just all this stuff in the 3-section thing, and they had like the bar fully stocked. And it was just like, after all the travel I had done, just not what I expected. I paid $40 and I was like, whoa. And I think because it would have been maybe a Monday night or something like that, or something random. So obviously it wasn't booked out. And I was just like, wow. And I didn't know that they upgraded me. I'd never experienced it before. I didn't know. I'd paid nothing. And I was like, oh my God. And I was like Snapchatting people. I was like, I paid $40 for this. I think it was at Bally's, but yeah, it was that was nuts. That was awesome. And then obviously our penthouse at the MGM Grand. But we know that one. Yeah.
So amazing. That definitely is like one of the nicest places I've stayed to. I would agree. Okay. Yeah. Next question, hostel or hotel?
Hostel for sure. And people who haven't done it don't understand. But
like, this is why you're my soul sister. People think I'm crazy when I say stuff like that.
No, for hotels, it's like when you go traveling and sometimes it's just you go back and it's like a clinical feel almost. Like you're just like, oh, cool, now I'm in my hotel room. Awesome. Whereas you go to a hostel and there's like absolutely everyone around you who's also alone. So you can just like, hey, like I remember I was like, hey, my name's Anita. I have no friends. Can I sit with you? And they're like, yeah, of course. Like, we don't know each other. Or they'll just be like, oh, we're going to dinner. Do you want to come? And to me, like the hostel experience is the backpacking experience. It is the reason why you travel, because if not, you're just going to fancy hotel to fancy hotel. Like granted, in between, if I do like 3 or 4 months stint, I'll book a hotel one night because sometimes I'm just like, I just need to fucking like walk around, clean my stuff, be in my own space. But like to actually go traveling, I think you're literally like ridding yourself of like 70% of the actual experience if you're not staying at backpackers, for sure. And then they know the cool things. They take you around town. They'll like, even if it's cliche tourist things, and you're never going to do that by yourself. You're never going to be like, oh, I'll go watch I don't know, this thing or this thing. You're never going to do it, or you just don't know. But hostels for sure. And it's cheaper. I don't know who could afford hotels every night.
I totally agree. I actually want to do a whole dedicated episode about that topic, hostels versus hotels versus Airbnb. Basically.
Yeah, and every hostel is different as well. Like I've stayed at one in Croatia, which is the shithole rat hole. But then there's one I stayed in Hollywood Boulevard, and it was like basically a hotel. Like you get your own bed, your curtain, like so clean. Like so everything's a different experience. Like
it is.
You don't know what it's gonna get.
Yeah.
No.
One of the most unique ones I stayed at was in Ghent in Belgium on a boat.
Yeah.
That was really dope.
No shit.
Yep. Really
so
dope.
Random.
Yep. Okay. Next question, which might be a little hard for you. You might feel torn, is solo travel versus group travel.
Solo. Yeah. Solo or even like group. I don't know if you mean like even like different, not the same. Like group tour for sure. Not really my thing, but like as a general thing, backpacking. The way I'm taking this question is if you mean like solo or like with my friends or people I've been traveled with before. Definitely solo, because it just like forces you to make friends and forces you to do. And also it's actually a lot easier. Like when I've traveled with people before, even if it's people that like I met out traveling or so, like you just have to cater to somebody. Like you have to care about what they're caring about. And so much of travel is just like, oh, I'm going to go here or go here. And also like, you don't know what someone's like when they're like first thing in the morning or so. Like even me, like I'm grumpy first thing in the morning. So like, I don't like people around me, but when I'm ready, I'm ready. And so I like when you're traveling with people, you may not want to be around someone who's grumpy first thing in the morning, or like, I don't eat this. I don't like this. I don't want to go there because that's shit. And it just ends up ruining your time. Or maybe they complain about like your airport stopovers and you're like, man, like I'm also here. Like you're making it worse for me. Like, you know what I mean? Like, so solo travel is, I don't know, it's just great. It's so carefree, and it just forces you to make friends. Whereas when you're with your friends, like you're just with your friends. Like you don't need to make friends because you're not alone. Whereas when you're solo, you kind of like, fuck, I better be social. Otherwise I'm not going to really have anyone, am I? Like, and yeah, like it's easy. A lot of people are scared to do it because they're like, oh my God, but it's fine. Like I feel safer out there, and everyone's in the same position, like for sure. But yeah, not to say I don't enjoy holidaying with my friends, but it's just a lot less to worry about and a lot less stress. Like everything's like, okay, I'll go here. Whereas when you're traveling, or maybe you're traveling with like a couple or people who are in relationships, and then they fight, they stress, and it just like dampens some things. But yeah, solo.
Yeah, I agree. I'm definitely solo through and through myself. Okay, and this will be the last one. Do you have a favorite travel hack? It could be packing tips. It could be your face. Anyone that's watching on YouTube. Some people stream from the platforms. Other people might be watching on YouTube, but your face, that was really funny. Do you have like maybe something you've learned that has kind of stuck with you when you're traveling, even if it's like maybe booking a ticket or
yeah,
really
well,
anything?
The only hack I'd say I'd get, but don't quote me because it may backfire. I always, like, whenever I pick my seat, I always pick right at the back, because they like, I don't know if they actually do it, but in Australia, it seems to work. It's like, if you don't pick it, they fill it from front to back. I'm not sure if that's real, but like, so I always book my seat in the back row. And then like probably 65% of the time I end up getting my own row. So if the plane's not full. So you like, if it's like a long haul flight, I've done it so many times. I'm like, fuck yeah, I get to like lay down and sleep the whole time. But if it backfires, it's shit, because you're stuck near the toilet and it's not ideal. And you hear the toilet the whole time and it smells. But most of the time it works fine.
And that's where all the flight attendants sit, and you hear them talking shit in the galley too.
Yeah.
And we're constantly talking about how people are blowing up the bathrooms because we have to sit by them and deal with that bullshit all the time.
Yeah. But I think that's my only travel hack.
I guess it is a good hack, but I don't recommend it if you're traveling on any of the US airlines right now, because everything is full as fuck.
Yeah. Do you have a travel hack? I'm trying to think like, Nothing really.
I think my best travel hack that I learned from being a flight attendant is using the hangers in the closet that have the clips for pants on the curtains to keep the curtain shut so that not even like a drop of light can come into the room. Like you pinch the curtains
For
together.
you, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, do you mean for people staying in hotels?
Yeah, staying in a hotel. If you're in a
Ah,
hotel and you have blackout curtains, but sometimes there's a gap, you could
yeah,
take the little pinched hangers and clip the curtains together, and then
that's
there's
smart.
no. Yeah, I think that was one of the
Yeah,
best travel hacks I learned from being a flight attendant. Solo
yeah.
travel
And
hack, I
also,
would have to think about that. I feel like that's why rapid fire is kind of hard. You came up with something right away, so that was good.
buy a local SIM card. Don't trust your SIM card and try to figure out some way to spend money. Like, don't use your local bank card. Sometimes when in saying that, check out
That's
the rates, because
actually
that's probably the hardest thing.
that
But the
actually is a
first time I
pretty good
used my
hack.
actual bank card, yeah, and I got so
Yep.
many fees. But getting a local SIM card wherever you are, you're going to save so much fucking money.
Yeah, getting a credit card where there's no overseas fees, that's actually a really good travel hack that everyone should do, especially if you are planning on traveling internationally. There's some cards that do have transaction fees. And so if that's what you're using primarily as you're traveling, yeah, you don't
It's
want
like
any
thousands
foreign
of dollars.
yeah, exactly. No foreign transaction fees. Yeah.
Yeah, and also I guess like think about your, I don't know, I was just like think about your money, because you get so excited in the beginning. I remember my first one was 8 weeks and I spent like $8,000 in the first 2 weeks, and then I was eating like tuna and rice for the remainder because you get so excited. So just like, I guess, plan your meals. But I don't know. There's many things, but yeah, the airport ones worked for me.
Yeah.
Mm-mm-mm.
All right. Well, I think that we've been talking for a decent amount of time. Where can people find you
Going
if they
so
want to
quick.
connect with you? I know. And also don't go anywhere. I'm gonna stick with you for a little bit, but where can people find you if they want to find you?
Sure thing. So Instagram or Facebook, both Anita Bass. But yeah, so Instagram, Anita, ANITA underscore Bass, BASS underscore. And Awake Tours is for everything else. So AWAKE Tours. Instagram, Facebook. I was gonna say Snapchat, but then no. Awake Tours and
Yeah.
Snapchat. Instagram or Facebook, Awake Tours and Anita Bass for sure.
Yeah. Yep. And
Thank you for having
I'll
me.
have everything in the show notes. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day before you head back to work to talk to everyone. Everyone definitely go check out Awake Tours. It's going to be so amazing once travel opens up again.
The comeback.
I'm going to be going on
The
Awake Tours.
comeback. I cannot wait.
And
Yeah,
I can't wait to see you in person. It's been quite some time. So this
it
was awesome
has.
seeing you. Thank you so much for being a guest on the show. Everyone go and connect with Anita online. She is an amazing soul. My puppy's coming down the stairs right now. So she's bringing a toy over. Hi, Kia. All right. Sit tight, Anita. Everyone else sit tight. I'll be back with aviation news.
Oh, thank you. Have a good day.
Okay, wow. It was so great to catch up with Anita. I have not seen her in a few years, so it's always so great getting to see her, especially being on opposite sides of the world with a 12-hour time difference. I just love her so much. I absolutely adore this girl. Like I said, she's my soul sister, and we've formed an incredible friendship over the years, and I just am so grateful for her coming into my life. Make sure that you go follow her at Anita_Bass. That's ANITA_Bass, BASS, and at Awake Tours, AWAKETOURS, and show her some love. And now that we have had that amazing conversation with her, we're going to wrap up the episode with our aviation news for the week. First up, I have FAA demands that Boeing flight manuals give more details on pilot emergency procedures. This is for the 2 current airplane development programs that are fairly new for the narrow body MAX and the wide body 777X. So basically, what I got from that article was FAA just wants Boeing to have more details in their pilot emergency procedures. Of course, each company that purchases these aircraft, they have their own emergency procedures, checklists, and things like that they put in place. But basically, FAA wants Boeing to elaborate more on the emergency procedures of the aircraft. All right, up next I have Ethiopian Airlines accused of transporting weapons and soldiers in the Tigray crisis. And if I said that wrong or pronounced that wrong, I apologize. But basically, this crisis is a conflict between the government of Ethiopia and the forces that are in the northern region, which Tigray, which I hope I'm pronouncing it right, I might be pronouncing it incorrectly, is the northern region of Ethiopia. And so this is actually a very complex story that I encourage you to go look into if you're interested in global affairs and politics. I wanted to just bring it up, but it's honestly too much. It's too long to even start explaining on this podcast, which is already going to be so long because of the interview. So go look it up if you're interested in global affairs and politics for sure, and aviation, of course. All right, up next I have congratulations to Qatar Airways for being AirlineRatings.com 2021 Airline of the Year. I have up next after that, 2 travelers submitted fake vaccine cards before flying to Toronto, Canada. Each were fined nearly $20,000. You guys, I can't. It's stories like this that make me embarrassed to be an American. I mean, just imagine creating a fraudulent document to be fined $20,000, put other people's lives at risk because of your selfishness, and all because you don't want to get a free vaccine that could help the world get back on track. That's basically like my very nice way of putting it. I mean, I've talked about some of this a little bit with the COVID episode I did, number 2. I know it's a very sensitive topic to be talking about COVID and vaccinations, and everyone has the right to feel how they want to feel on this topic. I know I have tons of friends that do not wish to get vaccinated. I understand some people's reasonings for not wanting to be vaccinated, but you know, I'm not here to say that you should or should not, but if you do not, please don't put people's lives at risk by forging documents and traveling. It's just so unsafe at this point. It's absolutely upsetting to me that people are even considering doing shit like this. All right, moving on. Africa must remove barriers to flying to secure post-pandemic boom. This was an interview article that I found on CNN Business with the IATA, which is the International Air Transport Association, which represents about 82% of total air traffic. And it was a really interesting article about the current state of the aviation industry and airspace if you're wanting to look into that more. And last up, I have, due to domestic border shutdowns, Qantas stands down 2,500 workers and union calls in support. So Qantas is Australia's main airline. They are pretty much the largest airline in Australia. And a stand down is similar to a furlough here in the United States, where an employer can stand down an employee without pay, and they can't be usefully employed because of a stoppage of work for any cause which the employer can't reasonably be held responsible for. So yeah, I just kind of wanted to bring that up because for any of my American listeners tuning in, let's just be grateful that life is returning back to normal, or some sort of normalcy here, because we have such a high percentage of people getting vaccinated. I mean, I think we could still do better, but at least we have such a high percentage of people getting vaccinated that things are filling up. The planes are filling up. People are traveling. And so especially to my flight crew that's tuning in, just count your blessings. Be grateful that we have our jobs back, that our flights are full. Please take care of our customers, especially if you're one of my peers that works with me. Please take care of our customers so that they continue flying with us so that we can keep our jobs. Because basically, like, COVID is still here, and I think is still going to be here for several years. You know, we have seen how quickly things can come and go now because of this virus. And so, of course, we heard in the interview from Anita that Australia is completely shut down. And in the video of this article, yeah, it was a very empty airport, similar to how it was here in the United States last year. It was just completely deserted. And so they have no choice but to stand down some of these employees. And, you know, as Anita mentioned in the interview, they can't even cross their own territory borders, so their own state borders there, basically. So it's just something to think about, especially if you're here in the United States. Stop complaining and start living and being grateful for the progress we have made here. All right, that wraps up this episode. Once again, I just want to thank you all so much for tuning in this week. Thank you so much, Anita, for coming on the show. I love you so much. It was so amazing to talk to you, and I'm looking forward to having more people on the show now. I will see you guys next Wednesday for What the Flight Wednesdays. Have a great week. Have a great weekend, and I will see you in next week's episode. Bye.